They say that humans are fascinated with the great beyond, what truly lies beyond this earth. In Greek philosophy, they adhere to mythical beings. They perceive them to be gods with everyday human problems. In Asia, they uphold entities that balance the scales using free will to offset the weight. But regardless of the beliefs, one thing is common: a life after your time is up. In the earlier days, life was simple, but in this generation, everything is complicated. The sum of life these days equals pain. To live is to be taught a lesson. In the end, what's it all for? Why do we exist? Sadly, no one can answer that question. But I do know one thing: whatever lies beyond the stars has to be better than what we endure here. Because if it isn't, then life truly has no meaning.
January 21st, 1999. The world would make way for Dominique Allen. She would be brought into this world by her mother and father, Sherry and Lewis Allen. She would have her upbringing in Indianapolis, Indiana, a place that's no stranger to a lot. It has its fair share of trouble and crime. But although she was raised in a city who some would call full of challenges, life was okay. She was the youngest of 4 sisters and 1 brother. She came from a family who was raised in the church, so they were well grounded. Growing up for Dominique was average. She didn't have flashy things or everything at her disposal, but she did have one thing: unity. At the age of 13, she would experience a hardship because this would be the year she would lose her mother. Her mother would be diagnosed with Crohn's disease, but she also had some other medical complications, and when the two were intertwined, sadly, the results would be fatal. Out of all of her siblings, she took it the hardest. Although she was close with all of her siblings, she was especially close with her mother. She had a mother-daughter bond that couldn't be broken. Life after Sherry Allen would introduce some complications. A normally well-behaved and good student would begin to slack off. Dominique would also begin hanging out with the wrong people. Luckily for Dominique, it was only a phase, something that she was going through to help cope with what she was feeling. With the help of her older siblings, she would get back on track. In fact, she would bounce back even harder. She would become an honor student. By the year of 2014, Dominique Allen would be 15 years old, and she's a freshman at Ben Davis High School. By now, she has a glow about herself. She has a wonderful personality. Aside from being an honor student, she also enjoyed helping others. She was enrolled in the SAFE program, a program that was set up to help prevent bullying. In her free time, she was a self-proclaimed fashionista. She enjoyed shoes, clothing, and when she wasn't busy with that, you could catch her in front of a camera. She loved taking pictures. For Dominique Allen, life was planned out. After school, she wanted to attend Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, and then after that, she wanted to become a model. She was your average girl with average dreams. Someone that could always be seen smiling or laughing. She could light up a room. So needless to say, she had a lot of friends, a lot of love. One day, Dominique Allen would go missing, and when she did, everyone was puzzled. Sunday, August 31st, 2014. On this day, Dominique would be staying at her older sister's home, Marika, who lived in the same neighborhood as her family home. Around 8 a.m., her sister would get up and prepare herself for church, and then she would go into the spare bedroom to wake up Dominique. But when she gets there, Dominique's not there. Instead of seeing Dominique, she would be greeted by 2 of her friends who stayed over the evening prior. She would then ask her friends about her whereabouts, but they had no clue. Marika would then pick up her cell phone, and she would attempt to call Dominique, but when she does, her phone goes straight to voicemail. She then goes and checks the perimeter of the home, but after searching that, she's still nowhere in sight. At this moment, suspicion begins to arise, because on that morning, Dominique was supposed to attend church with her sister, and she was a prompt person, so when she was nowhere to be found, it immediately begins to raise red flags. After calling Dominique and checking the perimeter of the home, she would circle back to Dominique's friends and inquire about the night prior. This brings us back to August 30th of 2014, a Saturday evening. The friends would explain that they spent the night at the mall, and then around 11 p.m. they would return to the neighborhood. Throughout the rest of the evening and the early hours of Sunday morning, they would spend their time hanging out with various friends before returning to Marika's home around 3 a.m. At some point during that evening, Dominique Allen and one of her friends had got into an argument. One of her friends had lost her cell phone, and she didn't want to go and help her look for it. Now, at the time that one of her friends had lost her cell phone, Dominique Allen was hanging out with her boyfriend. So when Dominique didn't want to help look for the cell phone, it only caused more confusion. They got into another argument about Dominique always putting her boyfriend before her friends. The girls would then explain that shortly afterwards, at 3 a.m., they would return to Marika's home. Dominique would go inside, place her phone on the charger, and then she would head outside to the porch. The two friends would then explain that before Dominique came back inside, they fell asleep, so her whereabouts was a mystery. After getting the details from Dominique's friends, Marika would then call her father, who also stayed in the same neighborhood. They would hop in a car and go looking for her. After riding around the neighborhood and looking for Dominique was unsuccessful, Marika would then return home. She would then decide to search the home for clues, and when she went into the bathroom, on the bathroom counter was Dominique's cell phone. It was at that moment that Marika knew something was wrong, because Dominique and her cell phone were basically conjoined at the hip, and the fact that they're now looking at her cell phone without Dominique is unsettling. For the family, that was the last straw. They decided to contact law enforcement and report her missing. The officers would be dispatched to Marika's home, and shortly after arriving, they would show them a picture. In this picture is a pendant. That pendant would be immediately recognized by the family. It was a pendant that once belonged to their mother, who passed away, a charm that Dominique Allen always wore. But at the time that they were being shown the item, they didn't know why or what truly transpired. But in due time, they will find out. August 31st, 2014, approximately 12:30 p.m. Around this time, a man has exited his home. He's taking his dog out for a walk, and when he walks behind his home, he sees a pile of smoldering debris. Now at the time, he thought it was mere trash, but when he gets closer for a closer look, he finds out it wasn't, and that what he was staring at was a victim. The authorities are then called. They tape off the scene and begin their analyzation. At first glance, the victim is unrecognizable, and on their person, there's no ID and no personal belongings. In that moment, the officers knew that it would be difficult to identify the victim, but there was one thing that could help. The officers had recovered a pendant. They would then photograph the pendant in hopes that it would help in the future. This is in fact the pendant that would be shown to Dominique's family. In the beginning, they were bewildered and they refused to believe it. They thought maybe someone had stolen it and merely wandered off with it. At that time, they had hope that Dominique was still out there. The victim would be transported to the medical examiner's office for a full autopsy. During the examination, the medical examiner would make note that there was bruising of the lip, as well as markings found around the neck area. They would also collect foreign DNA that belonged to a male on the left hand and the left foot. They were able to determine the COD as asphyxiation. But in all of their findings, there's one thing they didn't find, and that's the identification of the victim. Now normally, this responsibility would fall with the family, but due to the state of the remains, the medical examiner would refuse to show anyone the victim. So they would have to rely on dental records. And luckily for the investigators, 48 hours later, it would do the trick. The victim would be positively identified as 15-year-old Dominique Allen. They now have the name of the victim, but they still don't know why or who did it. The investigators would begin the investigation, interviewing family and friends. Friends who at the time seemed to have an odd story. We have two friends who was last seen with the victim. They said they went out the night prior, They came home, went to sleep, and never saw her again. Now, in the eyes of a seasoned investigator, this is intriguing. They also have a boyfriend who also claimed to see her the night before she went missing. The first thing they need to do is rule them out. And guess what? They were successful. When the interrogations concluded, they knew that neither the friends nor the boyfriend had anything to do with their disappearance. For the family, that's good news. They know that someone she loved wasn't a part of her undoing. But for the investigators, it makes it that much harder. As far as the family of Dominique Allen, they weren't waiting on the investigators. They began hanging up flyers and making the community aware of what happened to their loved one.
Justice! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Dominique! 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 You're so sweet! You're so sweet! What do you want? Justice! What do we want?
With no real suspect in sight, the investigators would turn to the textbook. They would begin looking into the backgrounds of the people who lived in the area. During this search, they would come across a person, a guy who goes by the name of William Golston. William Golston was a career criminal, and he also happened to be on parole. But to make matters worse for him, he had listed an address that was only a few houses away from where the victim was found. We're talking about a guy who has been arrested 35 times since his 18th birthday. When the investigators set out to interview him, he wouldn't be hard to find because he was already behind bars on a parole violation. When he was initially questioned, he denied knowing anything about Dominique Allen. He said that he wasn't even in the area when it transpired. He would then be asked for a buccal swab of his DNA. They would collect his DNA, and then he would be hauled off back to his cell. November 10th, 2014. Then, 46-year-old William Golston would once again be transported back to headquarters. The investigators would tell him that his DNA matched both the DNA found on the scene and the DNA collected from her hand. William Golston then tells the investigators, "You have me sweating." And then he clams up and he decides to lawyer up and he stops speaking to the investigators. But either way, William Golston would be charged with murder and awaiting his trial.
Allen's family was front and center at today's news conference. The family said it never gave up hope that the person responsible for Dominique's murder would be brought to justice. Derek Thomas has that story.
Over the next year, Dominique Allen's family will spend a lot of time here in the courtroom gallery, and they say they need to be here to get justice. But first, they needed to stand alongside police and prosecutors who followed the trail that led to the arrest of William Golston. They held hands, they connected, and then they prayed for law enforcement.
Thank you for the strength that you've given this family. Thank you for the strength that you've given this community.
It is the memory of Dominique that is giving the family strength. They are fighting through the tears and drawing energy from her essence.
We still feel that it was her pushing us. It was her, driving us to continue to do what we had to do, to stay strong as a family. Us as Allens, we are strong. And, we're not going to ever give up on anything. When we put our mind to it, we do it.
But despite that bold determination, there is an unmistakable emptiness.
I miss her a whole lot. And she used to smile at me and hug me and tell me she loved me every time she see me. It's hard with her not being here with
us. Dominique's father, Lewis Allen, is still overwhelmed by grief. He told me the thing he misses most is his daughter's laughter. He hopes that one day he'll hear that laugh again. Thanksgiving is just around the corner. The family says it won't be the same without Dominique, but they are giving thanks that the man they believe to be her killer is behind bars. Derek Thomas, RTV6.
William Golston is scheduled for an initial court appearance Monday morning.
The trial would begin in the year of 2016. In the preliminary stage, William Golston would show up and plead not guilty. In fact, he would stand on his innocence until the very end. But by now, the investigators had a clear picture of what had happened. In the early morning hours of August 31st of 2014, William Golston had taken Dominique Allen from her front porch. They believe his motive and the reason for taking her was because he wanted to violate her. Now, due to the state of Dominique's remains, they couldn't prove this theory, but they threw it out there anyways. Because after all, why would a complete stranger take someone off their porch for any other reason? They believe William Golston took her, and then he took her to a secluded area. Dominique wasn't one to go down without a fight, so she was undoubtedly kicking, screaming, and making a lot of noise. So he decided to hog tie her, and in order to try and mute the loud sounds, he would place a plastic bag over her head region. At this moment in time, he only had one thing on his mind, so afterwards, he violates her. But when he gets through, he decides that she can't be let go. He then takes a black coaxial cable, which in layman's terms is a cable cord. He then places that around her neck region and effectively ends it all. But for him, it wasn't enough, because after all, he had done what he did. So he takes odorless lighter fluid and he uses that to set the scene aflame. I'm guessing at that time, he thought it would be successful, and he never counted on the fact that the detectives would recover the DNA from her left foot as well as her hand. William Golston would be found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But even though the story has concluded, he still maintains his innocence. He says they have the wrong guy and that the true person is still walking free. Now I have to be clear, the DNA that was collected from Dominique Allen wasn't a 100% positive match. They found the match to most likely be his, which does mean there's opportunity that the DNA might belong to someone else. But there's also more to that story. William Golston claimed he wasn't even in the area when it happened, and the investigators found that to be a lie. He was staying at his girlfriend's home, the home that he paroled to, the same home that was houses down from where Dominique Allen was found. In my opinion, I feel like they got the right guy, and he's getting what he deserved. What happened to Dominique Allen is, I have no words for it. It's heartbreaking on every level. When she placed her phone on the charger and went out on the porch that night, I'm sure the last thing she thought was what was going to happen. But to make matters worse, it was a complete stranger. Someone who had been paroled so many times, he shouldn't have even been out on the streets.
Continuing our coverage now, William Golston was on trial for murder back in 2002, but was acquitted of the charges. 12 years later, the crime remains unsolved. Tonight, the mother of that victim hopes justice will finally be served. RTV6's Katie Hines is live in the newsroom with details on this story. Katie?
Now tattered and faded, Mary Lou Clark still has a few of the flyers that were posted around the city after her daughter's murder.
She was somebody that would help anybody that needed help. She was just anybody.
Sandra Clark Hobbs was killed more than a decade ago, but the pain is still fresh.
She was always there for me. And when he took her away from me, he took half of me, because me and her were really close. And I went for a long time and didn't get over it. Well, I'm not over it yet.
A jury found the man accused of the crime not guilty. Clark has always thought that man, William Golston, got away with murder.
I've went 12 years going over and over what was told, you know, and I can't figure out why he wasn't found guilty then.
Clark hopes the family of Dominique Allen can find closure, something she still hopes to find.
You don't know how happy it makes me to know that he's been got and they've got proof that it was him. And I want that family, I feel for that family. I mean, I know how they feel. I just hope that they do something with him.
Mary Lou Clark has come face to face with William Golston since he was acquitted in her daughter's murder. Golston denied any involvement with that crime.
My heart truly goes out to the family. Rest in peace, Dominique Allen. Thank you for being a light for others.